Just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you really do care. And if you're ready to expand your mind tonight, somebody say nothing. Just throw your hands.
Blessings, greetings, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is me. No, it's not me. It's actually you saying peace to each and every single body. Just a quick thing. I had a couple of ideas going through my mind, and the thought or the meme that I think is best to describe my thought process at this particular moment in time is that, or the idea that can best describe the way I feel right now is, it's like a heads up and a shout out to each and everybody who's consuming media, who's consuming alternative media, conspiratorial media, fringe media, alt media, whatever you want to call it. Those people, those truth seekers, those conspiracy theorists, those radicals, those activists, those armchair pacifist warriors, those keyboard warriors, those kings without crowns, those people who are out there just looking and searching and trying to find something. All I've got to say is basically this, and that is, if you consume all this media, at some point be sure to produce some form of media. If you consume all of these ideas and all of these different thoughts and different alternate ideologies and conflicting conspiracies, then make sure at some point you try and produce some comprehensive ideas of your own. Otherwise, you may fall prey to something which may not be progressive or productive or good for you. Why I'm saying this is because I've seen pictures of me as a child as early as the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm usually seen in the photographs with a book in my hand, always reading and leaning on the wall, reading at a birthday party when most of the kids are like running around playing with cake or playing with toys. I'd be there reading a book, and that dawned upon me to be pretty strange. And up until a few years ago, I had 2 or 3 rooms in my house actually full of books. And then I got myself a container and put all my books in a container. And it seems, for whatever reason, strange that now most of us, well, the vast majority of people, tend to do away with their books and just consume instant media. But what used to happen when I used to read a book is that I would be given a test or ask people to ask me about the book, and I'd enjoy telling people about the book, or I'd write a piece of English literature and do a comprehensive analysis of the book which I've written. I'll do a comprehensive analysis of the book which I've just read. Thereby, ergo, I'm producing an idea based on the ideas which I've read. I'd give my perspective on what I've read in writing as part of an English essay or literature exam or whatever. And I thought that was quite cathartic. I thought that was quite conducive to progressive development of the intellectual state. I thought that's quite a decent way to let loose some ideas which might be running rampant in your head, to air and vent some radical new theory and see how it sounds out, just to vent it, just to see how it sounds. So my advice to each and everybody who's consuming vast amounts of this new instant digital media, I would suggest humbly, you got to start producing some stuff yourself. And don't wait for the next man, don't wait for this man. Added on from that, what's been going through my head to make me actually say this is the thing that I've read from some, I think her name was Near Midnight, and she's done something about Hollywood cloning. And then there was another guy, Dan Flynn, talking about reptilian infestation and cloning. And then there was Jonathan Lippe. These are all YouTubers, and KZ Osborne and Stranger Than Fiction and Purple Dot, all doing Hollywood Insiders Expose Cloning, the weird Illuminati cloning phenomena, Chappelle's theory on cloning and homosexuality, all these cloning, Illuminati, reptilian ideas. Now, when I said you've got to produce some stuff, just because you've got somebody who's quite convincing in an argument, for example, David Icke, who says, yeah, the Queen's a reptile and she's a child-consuming, child-sacrificing, paedophiliac, necrophiliac, warmongering, child murdering beast. Just because he says it in a manner which was quite intelligent and quite well thought out, it doesn't mean that it's true. When you go to a court of law, you have two sides. You have a defense lawyer and you have a barrister. The barrister is the one that fights for the crown, or the barrister is the one that prosecutes. And the prosecutor, really, by and large, is really well convincing. He provides an argument which is very convincing. And just as a normal layman, if you sit down in a court and just hear a trial, wow, you'd be like, wow, this guy's really convincing. It's because he's tried and tested his method of convincing people of his efficacy, of convincing people of his thoroughness. He may not be thorough. He may be thorough, but it could be just all a bit of a facade. But that's the way that he presents himself in a court of law in order to win in the minds of the jury. And then you have, once you've heard the barrister, once you've heard the prosecutor, you might be convinced that the guy or the girl or the person in the dock is absolutely guilty. And then you hear the side of the defense. And then because the defense lawyer is skilled at deconstructing the accusations, you then start to wonder whether this defense lawyer is actually correct, and that your initial assertion that the prosecutor was correct and the guy or the girl is guilty, maybe that position is erroneous and they're not really guilty, and that you should give both sides of the argument, both the defense and the prosecutor, a fair hearing. That means you should give the accused a fair hearing, and that you as a member of the jury, or you just as a layperson, will then, you should as a layperson or a member of the jury, hear both sides of the story before you come to making your decision. A lot of people, from what I'm given to understand, in the new instant media, in the new instant gratification media, this new digital media, new social media, they just hear, we just tend to hear one side of a story. And with that one side of the story, we run away and formulate our own conclusions without really giving them enough thought, or without really giving them due process, or without really giving them enough time to comprehend what it is that you've actually been convinced of. So when people are talking about that Satan's children are in the Hollywood, I agree with that Satan's children are in Hollywood, because anybody who doesn't believe in the God and who follows the devil or the Lucifer or the Illuminati or the Bohemian Grovers or the rest of them, they are indeed devil's spawn. They are devil's children. Now, just because they're devil children, it doesn't mean that they're cloned. Just because they are devil children or devil spawn, it doesn't mean that they're reptiles. Just because they're devil spawn or devil children, it doesn't mean that they are reptilians or aliens. Just because they are devil children, or their minds been confused because they, as a youngster, they were abused. Just because they're devil spawn, it doesn't mean that they're cloned from some reptilian alien that visited the earth from an extra dimension and has somehow managed to formulate a cloning technology and a cloning base underground. And that's what Area 52 is really all about. Just because you think or you're convinced of one side of an argument, just because you may become convinced of one side of an argument, it doesn't necessarily make that argument sound. It doesn't necessarily make that point of view correct. So my advice to each and everybody who's putting out all the stuff on cloning and exposés of Hollywood cloning and reptilian clones and demons walking in Hollywood. I know demons are there, because you can see a demon, you can see somebody get possessed, or they're momentarily possessed with a mad demon spirit. You know, like when people get drunk, for example, they lose control of all of their faculties, and sometimes because they've been drinking spirits and they're intoxicated, sometimes the spirit takes over them, and then you can see them talking all sorts. Some of them get really violent, some of them get really seedy and dirty and nasty and aggressive, some get just really twisted and tormented, and you can see demons in them. But you can see demons in them, but you don't necessarily see demons attaching themselves to a person in the form of an extra dimensional entity. You don't see the extra dimensional entity, but you only see the manifestation of the entity in terms of the individual's behavior. So according to the behavior of the individual, you can say that your mind has been altered due to an intoxicating ingredient. But you can't you can't take a massive leap of faith. You can't take that massive leap of conspiratorial faith and say, well, because your behavior has been altered, you have thereby become cloned by an interdimensional reptilian alien, and you're devil spawn from Hollywood or from Bohemian Grove. You can't necessarily make those leaps of faith. You can't make those leaps and bounds of judgment. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can't. But in your mind, perhaps you can. All I'd suggest is try and listen to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or more sides of a story before you take on a particular perspective. And I do believe that people do get possessed. But that's it. That's if you're godless. That's if you're wicked. That's if the evil is already in your heart, because like seeks like. And I do believe that there are a lot of rappers and entertainers involved with the Illuminati, because you wipe hands, you pay palms, you shake hands in order to get through those circles of power and to make more money, take more money. But a few years ago when I was in London, I went to one of my girlfriend's houses and I saw a picture on her wall, and I could have sworn blind that the picture on her wall was a picture of me and her. I said, oh, I don't remember that picture being taken. When was that picture being taken? And she said, oh, that's not you, that's Richard. I said, no, shut up, that's me. What are you talking about? And then she told me the date and the time and who this other fella was. Now this other guy, I looked at him and I swear he looked just like me. Or I looked just like him. And then I said to her, look, what's going on for you? You just twisted my mind because I'm pretty forgetful and I forget stuff. And she said, no, that's really actually absolutely somebody else. So in terms of that, people out there, be warned, be wary. There are other people in the world that do look like you. There are family members, long lost family members. There are people at the other side of the world that may look just like you. There are what was the term that person? Oh, there are doppelgangers out there, doubles and twins that you didn't know about, or phantom brothers or phantom sisters. So don't get twisted about it. Just because there's somebody who looks exactly like you on the other side of the world or just around the corner, it doesn't mean that you've been cloned by the Hollywood cabal of Illuminati perverted terrorists, or of the Hollywood. It doesn't mean that you've been cloned by the Hollywood cabal of perverted reptilian, extra-dimensional, interstellar reptilians. It doesn't mean that, all right? And I don't want to make light of what some people consider to be quite serious. All I'd say to you, if you consider cloning and stuff to be serious, is what any good lawyer would say in a court of law: where is the evidence? What is the evidence? And you can't bring anecdotal evidence in. You need to bring hardcore, factual, actual physical evidence of X, Y, or Z before you can put the case to bed. You can't say it's circumstantial. You can't show me a photograph which has got a loss of pixelation, or photographs of two people from different generations which look alike, like Jay-Z or Eddie Murphy and somebody from 1850 or 1920. That doesn't really matter. So what? People look alike. I can go to Africa and see Africans that look like people I know in America, look like a cousin of mine in Jamaica, look like somebody I know in Brixton, England, who looks like somebody I know up in Venezuela. So people all over the world, we have resemblance and familiarities. Don't forget, there's only one blood in the face of the earth. There's only one human genome. And that, my friends, is the actual reality of the matter. Everybody's related in some way, form, shape or manner. And there are no absolutely independent individuals, even though we are all original. We have our own quirks, we have our own traits, we have our own personalities, we have our own identities and lives. To suggest, for example, that Hollywood is in the process, or these demons are in the process of manufacturing clones that can be produced in a couple of months in a basement or in a tunnel or in a subterranean vacuum somewhere. To suggest that, I would say that Perhaps you're listening too much to your Hollywood fiction writers. Perhaps you're listening too much to these people that like to watch their sci-fi movies. That's all I'd say, because some people will watch sci-fi since they were children until they're old, and they're convinced that the world is living off sci-fi and that we're living in an interdimensional, extraterrestrial, reptilian-infested reality. Some people will. Other people love to watch horror, and they're convinced that we're living in a dark, dank, demonically possessed populace. Other people like to watch films and movies about the God and Jesus, and they're convinced that we're living in the final rapture and the last days and the last times. And you hear people say all of these things, that we're in the last days and last times. Well, nobody's going to stop the time. Not you, not your friend, not this mad guy Donald Trump. Nobody can stop the time. So don't be afraid of living for tomorrow. But conversely, nobody is actually promised tomorrow. So don't get that twisted either. But I don't want to rap on too long about this. But the reality is, I've seen, somebody even said the other day that, oh, you look like Drake. I went to the supermarket a couple of weeks ago, and the girl at the counter dropped the thing that she was holding. I think it was like a can of beans or whatever. She dropped the can of beans on the counter and looked up and said, oh my God, it's Drake. I said, come on, girl, get real. I'm not Drake. This is me. I'm older than Drake, and ain't nobody cloned me. Okay? It's not going to happen. It's not happening. It's not happened. I'm no clone. We might look alike, but that's all it is. You might see somebody who looks like Drake, or you see me in different pictures. Sometimes I see a picture of me and I think, oh, that's not me. But that's usual. So don't take a photograph of Drake from when he was 12 or 11 and take a picture of him when he's 20 and say, look, this has got to be somebody who's completely different. If you lose weight, for example, or you take steroids, for example, or you put on weight, for example, or you go on a diet or take a fast, you can look different, vastly different within the space of a week. If you take a shave, if you're in a good mood, whatever the time of the day it is, if it's morning, night, evening, if you're dehydrated, all these things affect you. Well, they definitely do affect me. So I'm sure they affect you, and I'm sure you can understand the argument. But just because somebody suggests to you a quite convincing, circumstantial based argument that, oh, there are clones and there are reptilians, don't fall foul of their folly. Who is more fool, the fool or the fool that follows the fool? That's the question. The fool's the fool, so don't follow no fool. In terms of that, I've said it before and I'm saying it again. With sanity comes clarity. So before you make rash judgments, before you make fast decisions and say, yes, Hollywood personnel are being cloned, I would say if you do that, you're becoming a bit of a victim, a celebrity, a starstruck victim. Don't fall foul to their trash about celebrities. They try and get people trapped in celebrities. I don't care if celebrities are being cloned. I don't give a fluff if they are. If they're being cloned, good for them. Let's see if the next clone or the next star can make as much money as the last one. And then they say, well, the clones are really demonic entities. Well, if they're cloned, perhaps they will be demonic. But they're not cloned in the first place, so shut up. Just because they can clone a sheep or a frog or a dog doesn't mean they can clone a human. And even if they can clone a human, so what? So what? Just live your life. Don't follow no fool. Don't follow no false prophet. Try and keep your head pure. Try and keep your head pure. Try and keep your head sure. Try and keep your heart pure. Stay on your path and you do you. Try not to listen to too much different folly people who are telling you foolishness. Okay? That's all I can suggest to you. Now, in terms of people that do look like they've been cloned, so what if they do? It's no big deal. You see people that look alike. I see people that look alike all the time. I can show you friends of mine or people that I know that look like sisters, but they have absolutely nothing to do with each other directly. Maybe they had some long distance, long lost relative. As I said, some people say, hey, you look like Drake. So what if you look like Drake? I don't look that much like Drake, but then on certain particular photographs on certain days, I get more than one person that comes to me and stops and said, hey, you look like Drake. You must be a clone. How can I be a clone of somebody who wasn't even born until 10 years or 5 years after I was born? No, it doesn't work like that. He could be the clone of me, but he can't be the clone of me, because it doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen. It's not happening. And if they are making it happen, if they are trying to extract some DNA from some long lost or long dead pharaonic pharaoh, some long dead pharaoh, if they're trying to take the DNA of Akhenaten, for example, and produce a Barack Hussein Obama, and Hussein Obama's been cocooned all of his life and lived in and Barack Hussein Obama has lived his life in isolation, all of that, while because he's actually a clone. If they are doing that and they're constructing quite convincing legends and backstories, then hey, good luck to them. Take your hat off to them because they're doing well. And understand that you can't be wrong and strong. And if you live in right, then you will always have the might as long as you stay right. Understand? I didn't say stay white, I said stay right. As long as you have the God in your stride, then you can hold your head up with pride, then nothing can't trouble you. Even though they will try and throw these Illuminati demon things at you and try and throw you off with mad, stupid arguments about this, that and the other. Just stay strong, my brother. Just stay strong, my sister. Do the right thing, not the wrong thing. Keep your heart pure, keep your head sure, and you do you. Okay, so then this is me. No, it's not me, it's actually you. I've got to say peace. And I'm out.
Just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you really do care. And if you're ready to expand your mind tonight, somebody say nothing. Just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you really do care. And if you're ready to expand your mind tonight, somebody say nothing. Yeah, just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you really do care. Just throw your hands in the air, y'all. Just throw your hands in the, come on. Just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you really do care. And if you're ready to expand your mind tonight, somebody say nothing.